Hello, this is Marxist, and today we'll be talking about holding C. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to pretty much everybody who plays this map, so it's not a giant deal. You do have an amazing positional advantage pretty much the entire time that you're on the map, but I should caution you that the way this map works is that every time red loses a point, your respawn timer becomes longer. So if you die, it could really punish your team, particularly if you're the medic. That's the hardest part for meds is this map. If the blue medic survives and you do not, it's going to be quite a feat for you to maintain hold. So I'm going to talk about two holds for this map, one in which the team is believed to be on A, and one in which the team is believed to be on B, and what all the different classes can or should do in the event that you're holding C. I'm also going to talk about emergency cases, which is sort of like a third setup, which would be for when you're about to lose C and thus possibly the game. So we'll talk about some different stuff here and there, and we'll get going on this. So we need to cover a few bases before we get going here. When you're trying to hold C, you need to know whether they're on B or A. It's very rare that teams will split up, and if they do, it's really easy for you to abuse them. So that's good to know too if they're trying to split up. Usually all you'll see out of, say they're on A, usually the only person that will come from B is a spy or a sniper. That's why you have to have people watching the doors that they're not at, just in case. Now, you can make some assumptions. Typically a team that's just capped B will stay on B for the push, unless their med died. Then they may rotate on you, and it'll be important to find that out. Some teams will also go to A thinking that you think that they'll stay on B. So people will try to be tricky like that. It's also important to know whether or not they're running Uber or crits. A lot of teams really like to run crits into C. And again, if they had crits on B, they're probably just going to stick with it. Also, what's the advantage situation like? If you know that you're at a disadvantage, you need to give them a lot more space so that you can try and kite them long enough to get your Uber and even things out. And if they're already in, you need to be very, very careful to avoid them. A big mistake that a lot of teams make on this point is that they'll be getting pushed on and they'll go, ooh, I'll go out the left door, and it's trapped. And then you're basically screwed. If they're already in, you need to make sure that you go out of a door that's not contested, the spawn doors, because there's only 2 spawn doors to pick from. Now we'll talk about emergencies in a little bit more depth. A, if they push in before B is capped all the way, always walk out of the right side spawn door, or at least try to get out of the right side spawn door, because the left one is almost assuredly going to be contested or camped. And you do not want to go down in that situation. If they're already in or sure to come in soon, you want to get a heavy, a pyro, and as many scouts as you can on the spire as quickly as possible. The reason that you're going to retain your scouts is because they're really, really good at knocking people off of the spire and running around it in creative ways that'll make it harder to cap spire. It's good to retain soldiers if you can, but it may be worth your while to off-class both your scouts in this situation or both your soldiers if they've got enough time to walk up the spire. You obviously couldn't off-class your soldiers if they're already on spire by the time that you spawn. So then you're going to have to rely on your scouts to maybe get there, or just try and use a standard 6s team, at which point both scouts would need to be on the spire very quickly. Think about what kind of class selection you've got. Make sure that you call out if you've gone pyro so somebody else doesn't, and etc., etc. Now we're going to talk about the two situations that you'll encounter, whether they're pushing B or A. If you believe they're pushing from B, you use your combo plus your demo to trap and lock out doors 1 and 2, which are the two doors on your left if you're facing the big A sign. You use your pocket to block the door physically and your demo to trap it up and spam people out of it. That's if Uber is close or equal. If you know that it's not equal, then you need to be on the other side. If they're running crits, you can still play close. That's a little secret. But if you know that they're running Uber or have reason to believe they're running Uber and you're at a huge disadvantage to them, then you need to play on the opposite side. So you'll play over by 4 door or over top of 5 door so as to kite them and buy yourself time. Here we see sort of a graph of where people will be standing. You see the combo plus the demo holding on doors 1 and 2. The demo is primarily responsible for watching door number 2. The roamer can watch 3 and 2, and your heavy on the opposite side watches 4 and 5 until the Uber starts to come in, and then he'll walk around and stand on the little slope thing. I'll go over that when we get to the heavy section. But you can see more or less what's happening. Scout also watches 3. He can also peek out to see if anybody's come A or snake around behind, which I'll go into later. Now we'll talk about if they're on A. Most teams are going to want to push from A or rotate to A at some point, traditionally. So you're going to use your combo and demo to lock out the 3 and 4 doors. If they get really deep into 4 door, you can actually push them up and out and have your roamer stand over top of 3 door. I'll show you how to do that in the roamer segment. And that'll make sure that they can't come out at 3, and you'll essentially shove them back and get back into your holding of 3 the way that you want to. You may need to counter snipe on this point, but I in general would discourage the use of defensive sniper. Unless they've got a really great sniper that's wrecked you earlier. Also, if you're at a disadvantage, you're going to hold by 1 and 2 door as if they were on B, so as to buy yourself time and kite to get Uber. This is the hold you'll probably end up doing most of the time. You've got your pocket as deep into 3 doors as is safe, really. Your medic is sandwiched and hugged by your demo man, who's helping to lock out 3 but also watching 4. Your medic's spinning around in a circle, basically, to avoid getting backstabbed. Your roamer is watching 1 and 2 door, your heavy is watching 4 and 5 door, and your scout is either scouting out whether they're on B or not, or watching 5 door and poking into 4 to see if they've gone in deep. Basics of scout is watch whatever doors are opposite of your combo. That way any sneaky plays can get covered up. You need to stay out of any fights, though, because if anyone does get in and somebody gets on the spire, that heavy's going to need help up there, or your roamer if he's managed to stay alive. And you're one of the best spire fighting classes in the game. You may also consider counter sniping, going NG, if they're running a sniper or you've got time to set up. It's convenient for your heavy to have an NG, but losing the scout is pretty tough. Also, you can go pyro if someone's actively capping or like going to be capping very soon. It's a speed question. Can you get there as pyro quickly enough to be effective? Mostly only for emergencies. Like I said, basically you just want to spend most of your time playing opposite of the combo. You can rush Spire really effectively as well, so be ready to do that basically whenever. So this is an example of, say your team's holding, thinking that the other team is on B. You'll check 4 real closely, carefully check 3 door, see what's going on, and then if nobody's here, then you've got a couple options. You can take a roundabout route and kind of check around and make sure everything's okay. You can even stay if you want to, if you think they're going to cycle around, which is sort of what I'm showing here. Once you've checked out A, if you're feeling a little feisty, you can go down through the connector. You have to be careful when you do that, because they're going to be coming out of the B side spawn doors, maybe. But you can look at them through the window there. They will be able to see you from behind, so you need to make sure there are no respawners, and then you can approach them from behind. That's one tactic that can work as far as being a scouting scout. But otherwise, you're pretty much just going to chill. Watch 3 and 4 door if your combo's watching 1 and 2. Help watch 1 and 2 if your combo's looking at 3 door. You can also check around B and go through the connector again to get behind them when they're on A, which can be pretty effective. Mainly your goal here isn't to engage anybody, it's just to give your team the information that's needed and then annoy and bother the other team after they've pushed. Because a lot of teams will attempt to preserve their medic, especially if yours went down, so as to get an ubercharge advantage. So your scout's back here to deny them this. I wouldn't encourage doing this a lot. It might be something that you can try to do maybe once or twice in a game, because they will start watching connector to the point where you're not going to be able to get in, and then it just defeats the purpose. But mainly just, every now and again go peek around on the point that you think they're not at and see if that's actually true, because that's going to be pretty helpful. You're the eyes and ears of your team as scout, and also be ready to rush Spire at any moment. Counter sniping is pretty much just like regular sniper when you're trying to get a med pick when you're peeking out of C to defend B. You may have to pull up a little bit in order to appropriately counter snipe, but I'd suggest staying as close to spawn as you can, because once they get in, you've got to switch. Another option that can be helpful to newer scouts or scouts without a lot of experience playing GPIT is to just go NG. Basically, here's the essential setup. You can set your gun up over there on the left or on there on the back right as well. But I've made a basic NG setup here. You put your telly on the back of the Spire there by hopping off the dispenser. That way anyone who spawns is brought immediately to Spire. And then you just build your gun and dispenser on opposite sides of the Spire. And that'll pretty much keep things locked down. And it'll be a big boon for your heavy, because he is very well able to keep ammo. You can also put the gun down here if you want a little Christmas surprise to anybody that tries to jump the Spire. It's not suggested because it's hard for you to defend it down there, the gun that is, but it can work. And then you basically just hide somewhere on the Spire, watching whichever doors the combo isn't, and then contest the Spire if someone jumps it. Of course, another option is to go Pyro, especially if you're not feeling confident about your scout. You cannot maintain a Pyro and a Heavy on the point for the whole game, but it's something that can help for emergencies. I like to main a Heavy on this point, so I'm calling that standard. Most teams have gone to that as well. As Heavy, never ever fall down off the Spire. You are the ultimate Spire Lord. Watch your head, make sure you aren't clearly visible in case you get crits on or they want to snipe you. A lot of times when demos crits, you're a big target as a Heavy, so they'll go for you first. Also try and stay as buffed as possible, and if you ever fall below 150 ammo, you may need to consider going back into spawn and getting ammo if you don't have an NG, which you probably won't. So conserve ammo. A lot of heavies that don't have an NG will stand on Spire and just spam shots around at people doing 3 to 5 damage. And you don't want to do that. You need to maintain ammo for when people get on the Spire or jump at you. Heavy's not a class that really takes a lot of genius and know-how. But what I like to do is you just stay spun up and you hide on the opposite side, watching the opposite side. And then when they start to push in, you just mow them down as they jump. Even if they're Ubered, shoot the guy that's jumping you, because you're going to throw him down to the ground with your bullet force. So you just hide from the side they want to push in and then mow down, switch over real quick and mow anybody that's trying to get up. As roamer, you're pretty much going to be sitting on spire most of the game. You're also going to be on, if you note from the earlier slide where I show sort of the strat, you're going to be sitting on the left side of the spire most of the time. So you watch 1 and 2 doors pretty much the whole game. Stay on spire pretty much always, unless your team is at a huge disadvantage. Then you jump off the spire and sacrifice your life in order to get their Uber out or boggle their crits. So, like I said, roamer, you're basically just hiding on top of spire. You spam around. If there's a sniper, you can jump at him, and as your pocket tries to pressure him. But mainly, you're just sitting here like this, watching 1 and 2 door, and that's pretty much your gameplay. Or watching 4 and 5 door. Either of those will do. It depends on where you think they are. You need to watch the opposite doors. And you can also chill up on spire in the back if you want to help watch 3 door, if that's needed. But mainly, you're just watching 3 and 4 door. And then when they start to push, fall down on them or jump on them. Also, if your team is like cleaning out 4 door and you want to make sure that 3 is okay, you can hide up there on that lamp to make sure that your demo and pocket can adequately flush everything out of 4. It's a pretty effective tactic. You can also still, from up there, you can still bomb any door, basically, on the entire point. As pocket, you're kind of the linchpin of this operation, right next to your medic. If you don't have 80% Uber, or if you happen to go wacko and run crits, you need to be building constantly and furiously. If you have 275 or more health, you're doing it wrong. So make sure that you're building Uber all the time. If you don't have Uber and you know you're at a big disadvantage, hold as far away from wherever they are as possible to give yourselves time. You may, as pocket, end up having to jump the spire, and your med may have to run up it, but it's still going to give you a chance to get a little bit more Uber charge. If the situation is equal, or you believe it to be equal, get as deep into those doors as they'll let you, and physically block pushes and Ubers with your body and your own Uber. So, assuming they're on B, you're just going to watch 1 door. Or you can try and creep up to 2 door, but 1 door needs to be covered by your demo man in that case, or very, very closely by your roamer. Something needs to happen. Otherwise, you're going to get up in here at 3 door, and you're pretty much just going to chill here. This is sort of your default positioning. That is if they happen to be on A. Now, if they get down into 4 door, you, the med, and the demo have to get in there pretty deep and force them out, essentially. That's when you'd have your roamer come over and watch the other side, and then try and get yourself back to 3 door, however you can, and then end up, doing whatever you need to do. And also, just to finish up, if they're on A, getting ready to push, stand by 1 and 2 door. If they're on B, getting ready to push, then you need to be on the opposite side, over by 4 door, when they have tons of Uber advantage. As med, it's relatively simple. Try not to die. Keep your back to the wall. Don't fall down to the ground. Stay up on the spire or the walkways or anywhere that you can. Don't go to the ground, or someone's going to kill you. Try and stay sandwiched between your pocket and your demo, and buff the heavy whenever you can. Basically, as med, if you think that they're on B, then you can chill here, keep your back to the wall, and your pocket should be able to do everything that he needs to do. Make sure that you're furiously building. You can push up a little bit if you want to, but you'll need to flip around and check your back like every 5 seconds. Make sure that you cannot get sniped. If they're on A, then you can stand here pretty effectively as long as somebody's behind you watching 2 door. Same goes over here. As long as someone's behind you watching 4 door, then you're okay. Try and keep your back to the wall. Make sure that you're not exposed to any doors at all, ever. And then, as I said with the pocket, if they're on B and you're at a huge disadvantage, you're holding on that back ramp. And if they're on C and you're at huge disadvantage, then you need to stay on this back ramp. Don't be afraid to go to the spire, especially when a bunch of craziness is happening, because your team's going to be on the spire fighting and they're going to need healed. As demo, you're basically going to be helping the pocket play close on the doors. If he gets contested, he needs to say something so that you can come over and finish pushing everything away. Also, in the downtime, you're going to be watching the closest door to them so that the med can safely stand there. Have a trap every single time. You also may have to sticky jump the spire at some point, so be ready to do that. There also isn't a great many trap spots around the map that are super secret on C, so you're basically just trapping the tops of doorways and the various other little nooks and crannies that you can find. I'm not really going to show a video example of it, because they're all pretty self-explanatory. Just trap the door, trap the little lips above the doors, things like that. Pretty common stuff. Also make sure that you've got stickies with which to deal with the spire. This is basically just different examples of demo positioning play. If you think they're on B, this is a pretty easy way to watch 4-door and 3-door. Obviously you'd have a trap, but I'm just giving you an idea. If you think that they're on C, then you're just going to watch this, trap that whole area up. And if your pocket yells for help, then you're just going to spam pipes or whatever. I banged a bunch off the wall there, but you get the idea. You could also spam stickies if you're convinced that 4 is being watched still. If you're at a disadvantage, then you're just going to chill out. You're going to be a lot more careful about B and a lot more careful about C. Just try and use the spire as cover, essentially, to watch them as they push in on you. And that's my rough guide to holding C, so we'll be moving into offense in the next videos.